Good afternoon, Suidlanders. How are you? We hope that you're very, very well. I have, as many of us have, been watching over the past couple of weeks as more and more rumors have emerged from China of a new pandemic, a new variation of COVID, who knows what. And I'm just putting my phone on, what do you call this thing, flight mode, because I always forget to do so. And I think that so far it's been a bit bewildering and confusing. That is to say, the competing streams of information, or streamlets. So far, it hasn't been an overwhelming flood of information. It has been a dribble, if you like. But over the past, today being, let me just double check, Monday the 9th of January 2023, over the past roughly 4 or 5 days, more information has come out just in that short period than the previous, let's call it 10 days put together, and the previous 3 weeks put together. Initially, perhaps 6 weeks ago, let's say roughly mid-November, even before, but let's say mid-November, we began to hear of huge new lockdowns in China. Although we'd heard from, I suppose, September that they were locking down, but the focus, or the gist of the message in September and October and early November seemed to be like a continuation of something previous, if you know what I mean. Then we began to get the idea in mid to late November that it may be something new, but nobody was very sure. And now, over the past 4 or 5 days, it has transpired that they are claiming that they are seeing an altogether new pandemic. Not necessarily a new type of disease like monkeypox or smallpox or botulism fever, but a new, discrete strain of the COVID-19. And this morning I watched a video on featuring Maria, I think her name is van Kerkhove, of the World Health Organization, saying that it is a sub-variant of the Omicron. Now, whether you believe that or not is besides the point. So please be patient with me if you mistakenly, if you get the mistaken impression that I believe every word that I'm being told. You really don't know me if you think that's the case. But I'm going to present this to you as they would have it, because that is what counts in their minds. And it is their minds that are going to dictate whatever comes next, and I'd like to talk to you about what comes next. So, ostensibly, it is a subvariant of the COVID-19 Omicron. And it has now spread to, apparently, after having been in China very active for recent weeks, recent months, we all thought that it was whatever, Delta, Omicron, the zero COVID, the lockdowns. We didn't know then that it was a specific new subvariant, a discrete version of this COVID-19. We've heard in the past few days, number one, what I've just described to you, as revealed by Maria van Kerkhove of the World Health Organization, what the disease is, putatively, ostensibly. Secondly, we've learned that it's now in 23 countries. Thirdly, we are being told that in China it killed between 1 million and 20 million people. Now that's a big margin of error, or very loose estimate, but that's how the estimates are. Some sources are talking about 1 million, others saying as much as 20 million. Whether you like it or you don't like it, you believe it, you don't, that is nil influence on the mentality of the people who are driving this thing. And we hear that there have been four cases identified at Nelson Mandela University Hospital. I hope I got that right. Nelson Mandela University Hospital in Port Elizabeth, as I understand it. Apparently, 3 of the cases are nurses, staff members, and 1 is not. And the rumor is that all 4 or 3 of the 4 are asymptomatic. So it's a disease without characteristics. The worst sort. And I'd like to talk to you in all seriousness, although you must be patient with me if I laugh, snigger, and giggle. In all seriousness, Mr. Miller and I have been discussing for quite some time now what threats we perceive on the horizon, globally and locally, and the conversations are not as original or creative as you might think. We don't have any special insights. We're just endeavoring to do a good job of observing and of joining dots. Clearly, there is a threat of a global financial collapse. The real deal, Shaquille O'Neal, that we've been warning about since 2018. Clearly, there is a threat of global food shortages following the arson of numerous fertilizer and food processing plants running to the hundreds over the past 2 years. There is apparently a threat of the war in Ukraine expanding or spreading, I should say. There's a threat to us in South Africa from the deterioration and decline of Eskom, a grave threat, and various knock-on threats from that. There is also here in South Africa a grave threat of the failure of the state to pay the 30-odd million people who depend upon the state for an income. You may or may not be aware of this, but the number of SASSA-type recipients, SASSA-type grant recipients, all of those various similar social grants, some of them temporary, some of them permanent, some of them for this purpose, some of them for that purpose, all of those roughly similar grants recipients number about 23 million now. There are roughly another 10 million people who work for the state and who depend upon the state for a standard salary. Teachers, military personnel, Department of Internal Revenue Services, SARS, you name it, which is a phenomenal number of people. And as you will be aware, there have been rumors over the past 18 months roughly that the state is struggling to find the funds to fulfill its obligations. We heard around about the time of the medium-term budget policy speech of the Minister of Finance to Parliament in October that South Africa is bankrupt. Not in the sense of an immediate crisis. It's still able to borrow from Peter to pay Paul. It's able to juggle. It's not, don't accuse me of exaggerating this thing. But the word bankruptcy has been used in recent months by very serious observers. So that is the fiscal threat here in South Africa. There is a threat of a currency crisis in South Africa, hyperinflation, so on. Again, without exaggerating it and without overstating the degree of its immediacy. In amongst all of these many and various threats, the one that seems to be emerging quite rapidly as you and I sit here is this new sub-variant of Omicron, which has in recent weeks allegedly killed many people in China, spread in a short span of time to 23 or more countries, and has been identified in South Africa. Which brings us to a point, and I'm going to be quite brief on this. It seems as if, maybe, could be, possibly, perhaps, I, Simon Roche, am duty-bound to you, Saitlanders. I am obligated to you to forewarn you that perhaps the next few months will see a new wave of COVID threat or supposed COVID threat with its attendant lockdowns, destruction of jobs, and slaughter of the economy. Do I have advice on how to circumvent it or overcome it or how to prevail? No, not really. I don't think that I have much very good advice regardless, but even if I did have many sensible things to say or sensible things to say, they wouldn't be things that you didn't already know yourself, having gone through however many years of inconvenience you'd like to say that it is. If you'd like to count it from the beginning of the lockdowns in South Africa, which came into effect on the 27th of March 2020, if you would like to say we've had 2 years of, going on for 2 years of this thing, or if you'd like to limit the way that you see it just to the number of months and weeks and days that we were actually locked down, however you like, suit yourself. But I haven't experienced anything over the past 2 years, whether it's the lockdowns or everything else associated, that you haven't. I don't know any better than you do. I don't know about coping with this whole saga any better than you know about coping with it. Let it suffice to say, let this suffice to serve as a warning. You know, there's an American kind of style of modern business management in which people say brash things like, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. You know what I mean? Like you see a comet coming to the... Don't tell me that there's a comet landing. I want to know... Come on, man. What are you, a child? I don't have all of the answers to all of the threats that I perceive, as you don't, and as nobody else ever has. That's idiotic. Managers who cannot manage talk like that. Only they. They want to be absolved of the responsibility, the ultimate responsibility for taking care of a problem, by throwing it back at the people who alert them to the existence of the problem. So this is a warning, and only a warning, without any great advice, for whatever that is worth to you. Nevertheless, on this Monday, the 9th of January, 2023, it seems like the right thing to do. To stand on the roof or on the wall or on the whatever you like, and to shout out, ladies and gentlemen, it looks as if, it appears as if, who knows, but it seems as if we just might be smacked once more by these stories. And as Mr. Miller and I have discussed, as I was alluding earlier, we have a certain amount of fear. We may or may not be correct or right, but we have a certain amount of fear that this time it's not going to be like a mild flu. That the mortality rates are not going to be, as we've learned from the USA, lower over similar periods than the annual flu fatalities. With a complete absence of an annual flu. Who knows? We don't know. But our fear is that that this next pandemic, if it does indeed come, may be characterized by genuine, actual, elevated risk of fatality. And that's about it for this Monday afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very, very grave matter. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. Goodbye, and God bless all of you.